a 5G phone. It'll be a little bit faster than a 4G phone. Aren't we glad that each of our phones are a little bit better than the last one? But I think you'd be missing the big story on this one. Here's the thing you need to know about speed. Speed doesn't just help you do what you were going to do anyway, but make it faster. This kind of speed will change what you do. You'll be able to do things that you couldn't do before. I put the glasses on, and I see it map the room. It puts a layer of like wireframe. You can see the wireframe going over your furniture and stuff in your room, and you think, whoa, that's cool. You just mapped my whole room. But here's the freaky part. It didn't just map the space in your room, it knew what the things were. It knew what a chair was. And then it introduced characters into my living room, and they walked into my living room from a doorway from another room that it just happened to know was a doorway because it mapped it. Those full-sized characters walked in front of me and sat down on my couch. The couch was L-shaped. Some of them sat on one L, and some of them sat on the other part of the L, and they set something on my coffee table, and it blew my frickin' brain out. So the complexity is what gives AI free will. I'll just let that hang there for a little while. The complexity is what gives AI, in this case the algorithms that decide what you see on social media, is what gives it free will. What do I mean by that? Free will in human beings is based on the fact that you can't predict what I'll do. So allegedly today there's a big announcement from Apple about their 5G phone. And most of you are saying to yourself, well, that's nice. A 5G phone. It'll be a little bit faster than a 4G phone. Aren't we glad that each of our phones are a little bit better than the last one? But I think you'd be missing the big story on this one. If you didn't notice, stocks were solidly up yesterday, and at least part of the reason is probably Apple. And part of the reason is when 5G becomes common. Now you've got a little bit of a pipeline problem or a capacity problem. So I don't know if your 5G phone is going to give you 5G speed right away every place you would use it. But probably, it'll probably start out pretty good. And here's the thing you need to know about speed. Speed doesn't just help you do what you were going to do anyway, but make it faster. This kind of speed will change what you do. You'll be able to do things that you couldn't do before. I don't know if that means holograms or 3D or virtual reality worlds. Probably all of that. I don't know if it means just completely changing how you commute. We almost can't see the ways this will change things. Let me give you my example. If you have let's say a car that can go 5 miles an hour, you can use it to tool around locally, but you're not going to take it very far. But if you have a car that can go 100 miles an hour and it can, drive for hours and hours, then it's a whole different application. It's not something you use around town. It's something you can take a long trip with. So this 5G stuff is way bigger than you think it is, and it'll take a while for all the reasons that that's true to seep into your consciousness. This is gigantic. I follow a Twitter account by the name of somebody named Brian Roemmele, Roemmele, if you want to look for it. Definitely worth following. He has lots of new technologies and what's coming next kind of tweets, and one of them just will blow your head off. Apparently now our hologram technology is so good that there's this device from, called Port L Hologram. So you can follow them at port, P-O-R-T-L, hologram, all one word, port-L hologram. And you can see that they have this thing that's phone booth sized, in which inside the little phone booth sized hologram generator, there is a full-sized human being who looks exactly like somebody you're standing in front of. And you know, they're walking and talking, and they could be a deep fake, or it could be a projection of somebody who's standing somewhere else, and they're just being projected as a hologram. And it looks pretty amazing. Looks pretty amazing. Somebody says you just looked and it looks terrible. You must be looking at something different than what I'm looking at. But it will be difficult to explain how powerful this is. And let me tell you a little story from my experience to give you a sense. Yeah, my cat Boo's doing a walk by. I told you this a while ago. Microsoft has a version of their what do you call it, enhanced reality, where it places objects in the room with you, but you can't see them unless you're wearing the special goggles. Now, if you're wearing the special goggles, you know, you have a cool experience. And here's the experience I had when I tried them out in my home. I saw a demo version before they were available. I put on the goggles in my own home. This is the key part. My own home. And I put them on, and I turned on I think it was a mystery game. So it was like a murder mystery game where there would be characters that would interact in your space, and there would be this murder mystery, and you'd have to figure it out, I guess. And I put the glasses on, and I see it map the room. It puts a layer of like wireframe. You could see the wireframe going over your furniture and stuff in your room, and you think, whoa, that's cool. You just mapped my whole room. But here's the freaky part. It didn't just map the space in your room. It knew what the things were. It knew what a chair was. My cat's going to do another walkthrough if you see a tail go by. And then it introduced characters into my living room, and they walked into my living room from a doorway from another room that it just happened to know was a doorway because it mapped it. Those full-sized characters walked in front of me and sat down on my couch. The couch was L-shaped. Some of them sat on one L, and some of them sat on the other part of the L, and they set something on my coffee table, and it blew my frickin' brain out. Now, these particular enhanced reality creatures did not look like realistic people. In other words, you could see through them a little bit, so you could tell that they were sort of shadow people, but they were good representations of people. Now, when you take that over to the hologram world, imagine now the glasses are off. Imagine doing this same experiment, but no glasses. It's your own room, and maybe you've replaced the light bulbs with this technology. I doubt that's possible. But imagine it wouldn't be too hard to just put some sensors and lights in any room, so your room could produce a photorealistic hologram that could interact with your room. It could walk around. It could walk around. Until you see this, you don't know what's coming. Trust me, there's some stuff coming that is bigger than anything you could ever imagine. And if you're worried about everything that's been invented, already been invented, nope. Nope. There's stuff coming that hasn't been invented. I mean, it has been, but it hasn't been commercialized. So you've got some fun stuff coming, some really fun stuff. And I'm sure you're already thinking about the applications. All right, and I've said in a related matter, I've said this before, but it's worth reiterating, that no matter who wins in 2020, the presidency, I believe Trump will be our last human president. The last human president. And what I mean is that AI will effectively be making our decisions. There will still be a person who gets elected, but they won't have the flexibility that past presidents had to use their judgment and their instinct and their hunches and whatever. and make decisions that are real leadership decisions. Rather, in the future, the algorithms will decide what things we see, and then we'll decide that those are the most important things. And if those are the most important things, and we could tell, who favors which part of the policy for those most important things, the leaders are just going to have to follow it. Now, you say to me, Scott, the algorithms are not AI. The algorithms are just some math, and they're made by people. It's the people that decide what the algorithm does, and then the algorithm does things, but it's all people. The algorithm is just a little tool. It's no different than scissors and a computer. It's not important, it's just the tool. Is that what's happening? I think that's where we differ. Let me give you an example. This week I was complaining that YouTube had demonetized one of my videos earlier in the week. And there was no reason given. So I complained about it on Twitter, and to YouTube's credit, they noticed I was complaining on Twitter, and they contacted me on Twitter and said, which video was it? We'll do a manual review. And they said, it's not obvious what's wrong with it. They couldn't just look at it and, it's obvious what you did wrong. They said, we're going to have to manually review it. So I gave them the link, they manually reviewed, and then this morning they got back to me, and they said, the video is fine, it's been remonetized. So problem solved, right? Here's the weird part. The humans are not aware, still, what was wrong with it. In other words, the algorithm flagged it, took it, demonetized it, and never revealed its secret for why. Now, when the humans looked at it, they had the ability to reverse it. But do you think that your video would have been reversed? If you were not the Dilbert guy, if you didn't have 500,000 people following you on Twitter, and you hadn't complained in public, and you weren't leaving kind of a big footprint, would yours have been corrected? I'd like to think that YouTube is so on it that it wouldn't matter who complained. If they saw a complaint, they would deal with it. I'd like to think that's true, but I'll bet they wouldn't have seen it. I don't think you could have reached them. I just had this little, semi-famous person advantage that probably helped. And if there were no humans who know why I was demonetized, if this were to happen to you, who would have made the decision to demonetize you? No human being involved. No human being would be involved in the initial decision to demonetize you, and no human being would ever explain it to you or fix it later. You would be too small. Now, what would happen if the algorithm simply decided, using its math, it decided to focus on some videos that had certain messages and not on others? Would the people who made the algorithms be aware of it? Would they know exactly that this video was emphasized over this one? Apparently not, because they couldn't tell why mine was demonetized. There's a little bit too much complexity. Maybe the people who look at monetization are not the ones who programmed it. They wouldn't know what they're looking at anyway. And if they asked, it would be too complicated a conversation, so they wouldn't really know. If you asked the programmer, the programmers would probably say, first of all, it's not like there's one programmer. Yeah, it would be a team of programmers who probably only know their little hunk, their little piece of the algorithm, just guessing. That seems like a reasonable guess. I don't think anybody would be able to answer the question. So the complexity is what gives AI free will. I'll just let that hang there for a little while. The complexity is what gives AI, in this case the algorithms that decide what you see on social media, is what gives it free will. What do I mean by that? Free will in human beings is based on the fact that you can't predict what I'll do. That's it. Because I'm complicated. My brain is complex. So you can't tell, based on what I'm doing now, it's too complicated. You can't get all the variables. You can't determine all my inputs. You don't know what my cause and effect is. You don't know my body chemistry. You don't know my history. But if you knew that, and if you had the galaxy-sized brain to look at all those inputs and figure out how my brain is wired, you could know what I'll do. The only thing that gives me the impression of free will is that even I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. And you certainly don't know what I'm going to choose. So it is only my complexity, the fact that you don't know what I'm going to do, that gives you the impression I have free will. This morning, when YouTube told me that they didn't know, basically, they didn't have to say this directly, it's obvious in context, they don't know why the algorithm did what it did. It's too complex. Today was the day the AI was confirmed. It already had it, but today was the day that it was confirmed to me that AI already has free will, exactly like mine. It does what it does by formula, and it will do that. If it gave it the same inputs, it would do the same thing every time if it was exactly the same inputs. But it's too complicated. We can't predict it. It's on its own now. It has free will. I'll just leave you with that thought.